Hello everybody, my name is Joe Robinson. Welcome to Livestream number 102. I was going to say 92. This stream is going to be a bit of a Q&A session. We're going to talk a lot about guitar playing and guitar practice, how to develop your technique and whatnot. But before I start ranting and raving, I'm going to play you a song. This is an old jazz standard that I quite like playing. It's called All of Me. Hope you enjoy it. All of me, why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm no good without you? Take my lips, I want to lose them. Take my arms, I'll never use them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. So how can I go on, dear, without you? You took the part that once was my heart. Now why not take all of me? My magic trick. I have a little pedal here that loops what I play. One more time. There we go, folks. All right, good fun. Well, welcome. This is my weekly series in which I go live, and I usually just kind of play a mini concert. Usually do it for about an hour, but during this stream, I'm going to do a little bit of talking. We're going to have kind of a Q&A session. This is similar to what I do with my coaching community every month, where I go live and answer people's questions and talk about guitar playing and guitar practice and whatnot. So I invite you to submit any questions you have in the chat. I have the comments right down here in front of me. I'm going to take a sip of my drink right here while I ponder which question I may begin with. Okay. I see some good ones coming in. Forgive me if I can't keep up with them all. Scott Peck has a good question. G'day, Scott. Hope you're doing well. Scott's a member of my coaching community. Hi, Joe. Can you demonstrate how you palm mute, please? So that's a great question, Scott. And I do get a lot of questions about the specifics of palm muting. I'm going to go to my B camera here so you can see my hands clearly. Now, there's two kind of approaches to palm muting. One uses a thumb pick and one uses a flat pick. So I'll show you what I do with a thumb pick first. So if I take like a bass pattern like this, like I'm going to play a song like Windy and Warm. Part of what makes this style work is that palm muting of those bass notes. For anyone who doesn't know what palm muting is, if I don't palm mute, it sounds like this. It just sounds a bit messy and clunky and the notes are too long, but if you make the notes nice and short and sweet, you get a nice swampy sound. And if you listen to those notes, you'll hear that the A string and the E string both have substantial muting, but the D string is a little less muted. So it's basically you'll hear the D string is a little louder. And that's to kind of mimic the boom, bap, boom, bap, boom, bap, boom, bap rhythm of a 4/4 rock beat. Even though this is not a rock song, it's still got that 4/4 drive. So that's the goal, is to make the music feel like there's a great drummer going boom, bap, boom, bap, boom, bap. And for that to become automatic. So all I'm doing with my right hand is I'm placing it on the bridge nice and lightly. We don't want to be too rigid with our right hand, because if we're too rigid, then we're going to introduce tension into our right hand. And tension is the enemy of good tone. Tension is the enemy of good time and technique and feel. Basically, the central challenge of playing the guitar is trying to figure out how to get our hands to do all these different combinations of patterns and whatnot while staying relaxed. So that's basically what happens. The palm comes over, and it's a case of experimenting with a little too much muting, which that would be too much. Here the notes are bending out of tune. That would be not enough. And you just bring the palm over so it's just the right amount of muting. So that's how I do it with a thumb pick. And with a flat pick, it's a little different with the flat pick, because muting with a flat pick can be very handy, especially when you're playing electric guitar. It's not as kind of desirable usually when you're playing acoustic guitar. You want all the notes to ring out cleanly. But with an electric guitar, sometimes if your guitar is really loud, which electric guitarists like to play loud, then working on muting can help you when you're playing loud, because you can control any notes ringing out against one another. And so what exercises I do to work on muting technique are exercises like this. And just trying to get an even amount of muting. And if you want to learn that exercise, I have a course called Daily Exercises on my teaching platform, invisibletechnique.com. It's got the best basically warm-up exercises that I've been doing for 15 years or more, so you can check that out if you're interested. But there you go. I'm going to keep rolling through these questions because I have a lot of good ones. Many Vibes says, how to brainwash myself that theory is fun. Well, I'm not a big proponent of theory being absolutely necessary for playing. I think understanding theory is very useful, and it has a lot of value. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is to be able to play songs, is to be able to hear what you actually sound like. So develop your ear, and your ear is not being able to hear, like, in my opinion, good ear training is not being able to hear intervals and whatnot. It's being able to hear if you're in time. It's being able to hear if you're in tune. It's being able to hear if you have a good tone and a good sound. So that's kind of the most important thing, in my opinion. And from there, some people use a more theoretical approach and some people don't. And I think there's no right or wrong way to do it. The way I would suggest learning theory is by putting your guitar down and learning it like you're learning a language. So I wouldn't suggest learning theory within the context of a guitar. What I did is I took theory classes when I was in high school, and I did, I think, 6th or 7th grade music theory. And so I'd sit there with a pen and paper and I'd write on the stave, this is a third, this is a fourth. I forget it all now. That's what Miles Davis says. You want to learn it all and then forget it, so you're not burdened with the kind of thinking about things in this framework of theory. You're just thinking about the music that you've learnt through studying these theoretical ideas. So that would be my suggestion, is to do it outside of the guitar, to learn from a theory book and then bring those ideas to the guitar, rather than sit there and try to torture yourself into that. But triads are magic. No, yeah, triads are great. Triads are not really theory to me. Like if you learn these triads all over the neck, that's really a mechanical exercise. So you're just learning these shapes and patterns so that your hands remember them, and when you have a C chord, you can go. You can play all over the neck. But when I'm doing that, I'm not thinking third, fifth, root, third. I'm not thinking, I can't even think that fast. I'm just using my muscle memory. So that to me is not theory. Theory would be learning a jazz standard like All of Me, like I played, and thinking, okay, I play the major scale here, and then I play the A harmonic minor scale here, and then I play the D harmonic minor scale here. So kind of analyzing a chord progression and thinking in terms of that. But learning triads is just a really great workout for expanding your knowledge of the fretboard. Okay, keep rolling through. Holly says, hi Joe, could you talk about how you practice with good focus or practice more effectively? Holly, that's my favorite question in the world. So there's a great book by Anders Ericsson called Peak, which really summed everything I've come to learn about practicing up perfectly. Anders Ericsson was the person who came up with the 10,000 hour study, which Malcolm Gladwell called the 10,000 hour rule. And Anders Ericsson has critiqued Malcolm's interpretation of that somewhat. But Peak is a really great exposition on what it takes to master something like a musical instrument. It can also be applied to mastering just about anything. But he puts forward this idea that practicing should be deliberate. So the most effective practice is not fun. In fact, it's very difficult and requires a lot of focus. So what I usually recommend is practicing for short, bite-sized chunks of time, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. I usually practice in 15-minute blocks. And so if I was to sit down and practice for 30 minutes, that would be more effective than many people's 3-hour practice session if they're just noodling and they don't really have a clear idea of what they're working on. Oftentimes I'm working on technique. Oftentimes I'm working on the nuances of a specific arrangement or song, playing a few bars over and over and over again so that my hands remember how to do that. So I really build my muscle memory. So that would be my biggest recommendation in terms of how to practice most effectively is consider that idea of deliberate practice. I use a practice journal and I always log my practicing. It's similar to like my little sister. She's a personal trainer and a bodybuilder, and she always logs her practicing, her workouts. So it's the same thing with me. It's the same thing with a lot of athletes. They take their training very seriously. And I think as musicians, if we want to have a great experience playing the guitar, then for some people that you're just going to want to play and have fun. And if you're enjoying that, then I say more power to you. But if you feel a little frustrated and you feel like you're not making the progress that you would like to, and you've been playing a long time, which I know a lot of people fall into that boat, then finding a way to make your playing more deliberate is what I think is key. And it's really helpful to have some kind of a teacher, some kind of a mentor, and some kind of a source of feedback. Now, there are cheap or free ways to get feedback. You can literally just post a video online and ask people for feedback, and they'll give it to you. And everyone has an opinion, and just about everyone's willing to share it. So finding that feedback, the higher quality source feedback you get, the more valuable it is typically. So if I was to get feedback from one of my mentors, like if I was to play a song for Tommy Emmanuel, that would be typically more valuable feedback than if I was to play a song for someone off the street who didn't know anything about the guitar. Everyone has valuable feedback to offer, but if you can find people who know what it takes to take a song to the next level, then that's really the most valuable kind of feedback, I think. So those are some ideas about how to practice more effectively. And in terms of focus, like I turn my phone off. My phone goes onto airplane mode. I really try to resist anything digital, computers and whatnot. And I use a timer, and I sit there and I really try to just focus on what is in my practice journal for that amount of time without any distraction. And that's a great exercise in focus in general, because we live such a in a world where there's so many distractions. So, and if you want to do anything with value, you got to kind of sit still for a while, right? All right. Someone to just push you, says Michael. Yeah. You know, I have a coaching community, which is within my Invisible Technique platform, which is my teaching platform. And that community is opening on May 9th. So if you're interested in joining that, if you like to be a part of a large number and a very active community of other guitar players who are on a learning journey, quite similar to many of you, I'm sure. We have players who are just at the beginning stages of developing their technique and repertoire, and a lot of advanced players too, and everyone is very welcoming and friendly and encouraging. So if you're interested in that, then click the link below and you can join the wait list. I'll be opening again on May 9th. It is currently full, but we're opening it again then. So there we go. Holly says, will you have any tour in Asia? Hong Kong is what I'm asking. I've never been to Hong Kong. I performed in mainland China a number of times and had a wonderful experience over there. I do hope to come back to Asia soon. I'm not sure when that will be. The world has changed quite a bit in the last few years, and I'm definitely dialing back the touring world mainly because my online reach has really taken over. So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Seth says, how do you study a player? That's a very interesting question. Let me just ponder that for a moment. So, I think the best way to study a guitar player is to just soak in the music, try to watch interviews with them, try to consider who they learned from and who their influences were, and dig back. Look at the songs they play, learn their songs. You don't have to learn their songs note for note. I think one of the coolest ways to beg, borrow, and steal a little bit from everybody is if you have a player that you really liked, say you wanted to study George Benson, then maybe you'd put on a George Benson album like the Cookbook album, which is just such a great record, and take a listen to that, him playing with an organ trio. Consider who his influences were. Wes Montgomery was a big one for sure. Maybe you can find some sheet music for those songs. Maybe you can pick up a lick or two here and there, and maybe you can take those licks and incorporate them into your practicing. So maybe you are working on improvising, playing over a blues. So there's the blues. So maybe you take an idea like this. Playing in octaves with a dominant 7th chord. Now, that's not exactly what George Benson would play, because George Benson has his own vocabulary and his own amazing way of pulling a great tone out of the instrument. But that to me is very inspired by George, and I think that's a wonderful way to study people. That's at least what works for me, because I've always found it easier to make up my own ideas and create my own musical vocabulary through just figuring things out on the guitar. But I beg, borrow, and steal from everybody, but I don't learn a lot of things exactly as written. So that's how I would suggest study your player. What is your favorite Les Paul? Mine is the Gibson Les Paul recording. My favorite Les Paul, this is a very easy question for me to answer. My favorite Les Paul is Les the Man himself. I got to play with Les Paul when I was about 17 years old. I went down to the Iridium in New York City, and he was just such a wonderful character. He wanted to tell me about Django Reinhardt and how he had Django's guitar. I was playing with another guitarist who was a couple years younger than me, actually, Brian Brown. And we played some gypsy swing tunes and whatnot, and had a great time sitting in with Les. And yeah, what a great character he was. Have you ever got into Leo Kottke? Not really. I've not really gotten into Leo too much. To be honest, when guitarists play in alternate tunings, I usually kind of I don't really connect with that way of approaching the instrument as much, because I'm a very practical person. I like to be able to get on stage and play a show with one guitar. And if I'm going to be playing in alternate tunings, and having a repertoire of alternate tuning songs, then I always have to have another guitar with a different tuning, because I can't stand it when people change their tuning on stage. I think that just really drives me nuts. But that's just me. Hello from Elizabeth City, North Carolina. Hello, Enrique. Hi, Joe. I'm one of your Chinese fans. I'm very much looking forward to your performance in China. And how long will your fingerstyle album arrive? I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you. Yes, I've been working on a new fingerstyle album, and I'm still in the composing stage. So I have 2 other albums that are ahead of it right now. So it's going to be a little while, but stay tuned. Holly says, could you recommend a few fingerstyle songbooks for beginners? Not really, but do check out my fingerstyle beginner course at invisibletechnique.com, because it's really just resonated with tens of thousands of players now who've been through that program. And it's very step by step. I really walk you through things slowly from the ground up, from someone who's taken this style to the place that I have. I see a lot of people teaching it online, and there are a lot of things that just make me shake my head. Some people play with the hook thumb, like this. If you look at my right hand thumb, you'll see that thumb hooked like that. If you see anyone playing like that, run away, because you just don't have the accuracy. You don't have the clarity and the command of the patterns. It just becomes this kind of messy, horrible technique. But check out my beginner fingerstyle course, because it really seems to be popular with people, and people are resonating. How do you learn improvising? There we go. That's another one of my favorite questions. So let's jump into this. I'm going to switch to a different guitar here. I'm going to switch to my Strat. Hi, Joe. Any plans to come to London? No. not right now, unfortunately. I've played in London probably 6 or 8 times, and I certainly enjoy playing over in the UK. So how to learn improvising? Well, this is... Let me go into a little detail here on improvising. So a great way to start out learning improvising is to learn 2 scales. Those 2 scales would be the minor pentatonic scale, which in the key of A minor sounds like this. The other scale would be the major scale, so in the key of C, C major would sound like this. And I know many of you are going to think scales are boring, scales are theory, I don't want to learn scales, I just want to play songs. Well, if you want to learn to improvise, then a scale is going to give you the language in order to express your improvisational ideas. So the way to practice improvising is actually really fun. So what I would suggest doing is going to YouTube, typing in A minor backing track, and then practice with the A minor pentatonic scale. Let me show you how to do that. I'll make a backing track with my loop pedal. Okay, there's my backing track. So, we have this scale, which looks like... And what we're going to do is just play those notes and try to make something up. Like, let's take 3 notes. Okay, those are within that scale. We'll try to make something with just those 3 notes. Let's take another 3 notes. So these 3 notes. Let's take those 3 notes and these 3 notes and try to make something. There we go. Someone says, how to learn Frank Gambale. I'll tell you the best way to learn Frank Gambale is from Frank Gambale. Frank Gambale has some instructional videos. I have them all on a DVD spool somewhere. I watched them all when I was a kid and would do that sweep picking thing. It's like, that's the way to learn from players, is to actually watch them. Go directly to the source. You don't watch some guy on YouTube talking about how to play like Frank Gambale. Go and listen to Frank Gambale. It's like, you should only listen to me if you like the way I play, because just because I'm showing up to teach you things does not mean you should listen to me. You should listen to me if you like the way I play, because otherwise you might go down a rabbit hole. And anyway, so that's using the A minor pentatonic scale. And when you start to feel like it sounds like a scale, like you're practicing a scale, I'm going to show you how to kind of break out of that. It's doing what I call big interval jumps. So we have that scale. And what I like to do is just do some big interval jumps. sounds a bit disjointed, but it doesn't sound like this kind of scale thing. Like a lot of people seem to get into that kind of situation. So I'll do some of those bigger interval jumps and we'll talk about how to practice that. So that'll kind of break you out of just playing the same kind of up and down scale thing. It'll also help you learn the scale and the pattern better. Your muscle memory will improve with it. And from there, I think the rhythm and the timing of your phrasing is a great thing to practice. So here's a really practical way to practice that. Set a timer for 15 minutes, pull up the backing track on YouTube, and just listen to the backing track over and over again. For 5 minutes, play with just 3 notes. For 5 minutes, play with those big interval jumps. And then for 5 minutes, just work on trying to play straight eighth notes. So straight eighth notes might be like this. Here we go. So it's just, and if that's too fast, you can start with quarter notes. So that's a great way to just get really comfortable playing that scale. And from there, once you've learned that A minor pentatonic scale, doing the same thing with the C major scale, which has 7 notes as opposed to 5 notes. So there's a little more to work with there. And then learning those scales in different positions up the neck until you can play them all over the neck without even thinking about them. And you can play over so many songs with just those tonalities, the minor pentatonic and the major scale. And from there, it's great to learn the blues, so learn like the Mixolydian mode, the bebop dominant scale, and from there learn how to play over some different chord progressions using the harmonic minor and so forth, and other modes, potentially like the Dorian mode. So that's a little mini lesson on improvising. I hope you're enjoying this session where I'm just yabbering away, answering your questions. Keep them coming, everybody. Joe, will you be at CAST this summer? No, I will not be at CAST this summer, unfortunately. Holly says, Joe, would you recommend revisiting old songs after learning? I found myself, I forget how to play it after a while. Can you talk about building up the repertoire? It's a great question, Holly. You have excellent questions. So for building repertoire, I have a suggestion for locking a song into your repertoire. Because I'm of the belief that once you have performed a song or recorded a song, and when I say performed a song, like you've performed it 6 or 8 times, if you've performed a song 6 or 8 times in front of people, then you've gotten it to a level where you're probably never going to forget it. And to brush up on it will require minimal maintenance. If you learn a song in your practice room, and then you go on to the next song, and then you go on to the next song, and you never really perform it, then I feel like you can't expect your muscle memory to really remember it, because you haven't played it enough times to to have it be part of your muscle memory. So what I recommend is recording a song. You can record it on your phone, you can record a video, you can put it on social media. As soon as you press that red record button, you're going to figure out pretty quickly how well you really know the song. And that's going to be valuable feedback for you, because as you polish up your piece, then you'll embed it further and further into your muscle memory. And once it's in your muscle memory, you'll have a much higher chance of being able to play it whenever you'd like to. What I do with my repertoire is I have a repertoire spreadsheet. So I have all my original songs, my instrumental compositions, all my original songs with voice. I have hundreds of songs. You can listen to all my original songs on Spotify if you like. I have 6 or 7 albums now. And I have my cover song arrangements. Sometimes I arrange classic tunes. And I have other songs that I know that I've learnt over the years that I love playing and that are kind of a really good workout for me. And when I sit down for a practice session, I'll look at my repertoire and I'll think, I haven't played that in a while. I'll practice that this practice session. And so I write it in my practice journal, and then I'll work on that song for maybe 15 minutes, playing it over and over again, slowly with a metronome. That's how I maintain my repertoire. Zami says, when you're inventing new song ideas, how do you do that? Do you record audio/video, write it down? It's a great question. So I use voice memos, which is just an app on my phone. It's just a recorder app. If you have an Android, I'm sure there's a same app for just making voice notes. And basically what I do is when I have an idea, and oftentimes that idea can come when I'm having a conversation with someone. So if I have a guitar, and maybe I'm at sound check chatting with the sound engineer through a microphone, I'll be like, just hang on a second, and I'll press my phone, record voice memos, and I'll play whatever idea I have into my voice memo. And then once I feel like I've gotten it down and I've said what I want to say, when I'm in a place where I'm kind of writing a song, which some evenings I'll have an hour and I'll think, yeah, it'd be nice to work on a song right now. I'll go through my voice memos and I'll listen, and I'll instantly go back to where I was when I recorded that little voice memo. And so from there I'll flesh it out and maybe try to create a song from it. So that's how I do it. Okay. Joe, what scale would you play over E blues? Well, here's my philosophy of playing over the blues. Let me play over the blues a little so you can hear a little about what I'm talking about. I guarantee this is different than the way other people talk about playing the blues, which is amazing because the blues has been so discussed. Okay, something like that. Let me play. Something like that. So to me, it feels weird talking about using a scale to play the blues, because the blues is really not about a scale. To me, playing the blues can incorporate a lot of different sounds, a lot of different harmonic approaches, here are some of the ones that I like to use. We'll start off with the minor pentatonic, which we've already covered in depth. So the minor pentatonic, E minor pentatonic, sounds like this. If I was to take the E Mixolydian mode, it would sound like this. Then the A Mixolydian mode, E Mixolydian mode, here that sounds a little, it has a little more color, it's a little brighter sounding than the minor pentatonic. Just got that major third, but it still has that dominant seventh. So those are two scales to learn: the E minor pentatonic scale, the E Mixolydian mode. Another really useful scale is the bebop dominant scale. It sounds like this. So it's basically like a Mixolydian mode, but with some chromaticism added. So you're walking down chromatically from the root note. And then you can put the flat 5 in there if you want to be a bit of an overachiever. And I like to put the minor third and the major third in there. Isn't that a cool sound? So if I'm just using the E bebop dominant scale to improvise, it would sound like this. It's not the kind of sound you'd want to just stay on, but it's really nice for a color here and there. And some of you might be thinking, that's not the blues, that's jazz. Well, jazz and blues are from the same world. So there's a lot of overlap. And the greatest jazz players all play the blues. The greatest blues players don't all play jazz, but there's a lot of overlap. So what is another scale we can use? The major pentatonic is another great one. That's kind of the B.B. King sound. Sounds like this. 1, 2, 3. So when I'm playing the blues, I'm usually pulling from all these different sounds, depending on the tune, depending on what I'm feeling. Sometimes it might be more of a minor pentatonic. There's also the blues scale. Sometimes it might be a little bit more of a dominant seventh Mixolydian, etc. But it's all just playing the blues, and the blues is about joy. The blues is about having fun despite being in a shitty situation. Sorry to swear on a stream. But I was on the road with Robin Ford, who's one of the greatest blues players I've ever worked with, for sure. Really amazing musician, and he was listening to some John Coltrane, and I said, man, it sounds like he's just weeping through his horn. And Robin said, no, man, he's joyful. That's joy. That's his way of saying, you can't keep me down. I'm going to make a joyful sound. And that's a really cool way to look at the blues, I think. Blues is about emotion. I don't know about that. I think blues is about joy. Blues is about attitude. Blues is about personality. You know, these guys aren't sitting around being emotional. They're not sitting around moping. They're making a joyful sound. Have you played endlessly yet? Nope, I haven't played endlessly on this stream because this stream is really a guitar Q&A. So, good question, Cam. I agree. Good question. What are your steps for making your own cover of a song? This is a great question. Let me just talk for a moment here about a couple things I have to mention. This stream was brought to you by the virtual tip jar. If you enjoy the stream, then I have a virtual tip jar set up where you can send me a tip if you'd like. It's not required for admission, but thank you in advance to anyone who chooses to do that. I have to mention it each stream, but I try not to mention it too much. I also wanted to mention that my coaching community, which is a private membership where I coach guitar players, is opening again on May 9th. So click the link below if you'd like to join the wait list to be notified when I open the doors again. We have a really engaged, wonderful community in there, and I really enjoy interacting with folks on there. It's a chance for people to post videos of themselves playing. I can offer some suggestions. We have calls like this, which are on Zoom, and it's a really great way for me to interact and for us all to grow as musicians. So do check out my coaching community. And also, if you're interested in learning to play fingerstyle guitar like me, I have a trio of fingerstyle courses called Complete Fingerstyle Guitar. There's a beginner, intermediate, and an advanced course, and they're my best-selling programs. I've had over 13,000 people go through them, something like that now, and there's an average of 4.7, 4.8 in the reviews people have left. So I really feel honored and privileged to have helped so many people enjoy this instrument. So how to make a cover song your own? Well, I think the way to do that, my opinion, is to have a musical personality to begin with. You have to, and that requires some courage. So the way to develop your own musical sound and your own musical style is to get out onto a stage and play for people. So when you do that, you figure out who you are. You figure out what kind of music, well, what kind of sounds you make that connect with people. And you look at your audience and you really try to make that connection. And I really believe that's the genesis of finding your own musical personality and style and point of connection. From there, the way I think about music is there's melody, there's harmony, and there's rhythm. There's also lyrics and timbre and all kinds of other elements, but it really just boils down to the melody, the harmony, and the rhythm. And if you have a set of tools that you like to use, for example, I have a tool set that includes fingerstyle guitar, I can sing, I can play as a soloist, playing walking bass at the same time as melodies, so I have that independence. I can improvise. I have a lot of blues influence. These are my tools that I use to express whatever song I want to perform. That song might be an original song. That song might be a cover song. But I'm using these tools that I've honed. And someone asked, do I play slide? I don't really play slide. That's not really part of my tool belt. I don't really play in open tunings. That's not really part of my tool belt. I don't really play bongos on my guitar. That's not really part of my tool belt. I really have honed the kind of sounds that I like to pull out of the guitar, and I think that's what any performing musician must do, is find out what sounds they like, and from there, whatever you play is going to be channeled through your own musical voice. The truth is, if you try to sound like somebody else, you're not really going to sound like them. You're going to sound like you because you're you. You have your hands and you have your ears, and you use your ears to pull the sound from your hands. And that's a beautiful thing. And I'm very thankful that we all have a unique musical spirit to communicate these 12 notes. There's only 12 notes in the chromatic scale in Western music. And there's so much we can do with those 12 notes. So if I take a cover song, maybe it's like an Eric Clapton song or something, I'll usually try to be sensitive to the meaning of the song and where the song comes from, the history of it, because a lot of people are going to hear that song and be taken back to where they were when they've played it. Like I've played Tears in Heaven on stage a number of times and had people come up to me and say, they lost a child, or they lost a young relative, and that song has been a really important piece of music for their healing and whatnot. So I think it's important to be sensitive to the context of a particular song. But from there, it's like, how do I express the melody and the harmony and the rhythm? And I usually try to find a way to do that is a little different to the way other people have done it. And just try to think of how can I contribute to the body of music that's been arranged for this guitar, this 6-string instrument. And you'd be amazed at how many great songs there are that don't have really definitive, wonderful arrangements, because arranging takes a lot of time, takes a lot of skill, and it takes an experienced person to create a really great arrangement. That being said, there's a few people in my community who are really arranging beautifully, and I really feel inspired by that. It's a great exercise, arranging a song, because you learn how to write songs. It's a great way to learn how to write songs, because when you write a song, when you write a melody, you have to arrange that and figure out a way to create a performance piece from that melody that you've created. And that is the same process of taking an existing melody that's been written by somebody else and bringing it to life in a unique arrangement. So there we go. You've done a great job at all of it. Just remember, all of it matters. Thanks, Michael. All of it matters. That's an interesting point. All right, there's an interesting spam comment. Don't you love all the robots? They're especially prevalent on Facebook. Here's a question from Jimmy. During the Australia's Got Talent competition, you never did sign a contract that was presented to you. Has there been any repercussions from that decision? By the way, you are a true inspiration and incredible guitarist. Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate that. Yeah, there was never any repercussions from not signing the Australia's Got Talent contract. I thought there would be at the time. I thought they'd just boot me off the show. But it was really incredible that they let me win. Someone says, do I look at Twitch comments? Yes, I look at Twitch comments. I have all the comments coming in on my screen here. But there's not many people on Twitch. Most people are on YouTube and Facebook. There have never been any repercussions from not signing that contract. But I have heard from a number of people. Like I chatted to the head of Sony Music about it. And he's like, I remember when that happened, when you won that show. And people were talking, oh yeah, they let this guy in Australia win without signing the contract. Like, what kind of precedent does that set? And he seemed to remember that. So maybe I made some kind of waves within the reality TV show contract world, but I doubt it. I'm really thankful that I was on that show, and I'm thankful that I was able to have a kickstart to my career. I won $250,000 on that show, for anyone who doesn't know, Australian dollars, which aren't worth what they were, I would say. And I blew it all when I came to the States. So it took me a few years, but I blew it all. And it's a story that I haven't really told in full, but I shall at some point when I'm ready. Okay, do I need to pluck my strings harder to release the full potential on the guitar, or do I need to stay relaxed? I'm very confused. That's a great question. So when you listen to someone like Tommy Emmanuel, you hear this huge, powerful sound. But he's playing very lightly. He has a very light touch, just like I do. I have a very light touch. When you listen to Robin Ford play, you hear this big, bold and beautiful electric tone. He's playing with a very refined touch with a lot of finesse. So I'm a believer that you don't need to hit the strings hard. The most important thing is to stay relaxed. And if you want to have a really clear sound and a purity of note, that comes from the left hand having strength and having the dexterity to play whatever you want it to, with the notes being really clear. So I'm playing Whisper Quiet here. Check this out. see how clear all those notes are. If I was to have the left hand be a little like a lot of people with the left hand is, not strong enough, it would sound like this. Hear that? There's no point to the note. So working that left hand is going to be really key. So the way I see it, the left hand should be able to play whatever you want it to play with perfect, relaxed, minimum necessary force. So minimum necessary pressure to fret the notes. I do exercises like this. Check out my daily exercises course if you want to do the exercises I do. They basically go like that. And if you sit there with your ring finger and pinky and do that for a minute, you'll get very tense, and you'll stretch your hands. It's always important to stretch your hands before you play. If that's new to your ears, you've never heard that before, then do check out my daily exercises course, because it's going to really help you. It's like people sit around watching YouTube videos without really knowing the fundamentals. Getting the left hand to really have that strength and command is going to be the key. From there, once the left hand is trained, the right hand should be able to play at any dynamic level. So whisper quiet, or with a lot of power and a lot of attack. But the key is to not have the left hand tense up. So you want the left hand to always be relaxed, and the right hand can control the dynamics. So I hope that answers your question. That's really, yeah. Pat says, I'm doing the exercises every day. Good. Okay, I'm glad to hear it. Is there a time frame for the new album? Not really. I'm enjoying taking my time finishing this music. And I really want to make something that's going to last. So that's my goal. Zemi says, so when you're creating a cover, how do you start? Melody, chords, or what would be your process? I'm not sure if you're a member of my coaching community, but do check out the masterclass I recorded about arranging, because it's very in-depth. Basically, I think you should learn the song from all angles. So you should learn how to play the song in the original key. You should learn the words of the song, even if you're not going to sing them. Just learn the words. Learn the melody back to front. Listen to the song dozens and dozens of times. Really get to understand it. Learn the bass line. Learn the rhythm. And from there, you got to start to use your imagination about what is possible on the guitar. So what kind of approach do you want to take? Do you want it to have a walking bass line? Do you want it to have a distinct bass line groove? Do you want it to have the melodies be played with open strings or harmonics? What can you imagine? From there, it's a matter of finding the right key to play it in. So generally on the guitar, it's nice to have some open strings to use. So often E, G, A, C, D, those are nice keys. If you're going to play a song in B flat or F or A flat, D flat, E flat, you have less options. So generally just finding the right key is the next piece of the puzzle. From there, it's about finding a way to play like the main theme, like the chorus or the main verse melody. And then how are you going to finish the arrangement? Because if you just play like a verse and chorus of a song, or an A and B section of a song, oftentimes it's like 1.5 minutes long. So this is addressing arranging a song, like creating an instrumental arrangement, by the way. A cover is a bit different in my mind, where you're just singing a song. But if you're creating an arrangement, you want to have each verse be a little different. So maybe when you repeat that verse, you take it up an octave or take it down an octave, or add a harmony or add some harmonics. Change something to give it somewhere to go. I think that's a really great technique. Could you illustrate it, for example, on how you create different sounding covers of the Pirates of the Caribbean theme? Well, if you wanted to create different sounding covers of the Pirates of the Caribbean theme, I don't really know that song, but you would learn the melody, and then you would I'd probably check out what kind of versions people have of that song, and then think, what can I do different? How can I contribute to the body of existing arrangements for this song? But just check out my masterclass because there's a lot of information in there. Michael says, you said that you don't like open tuning, so how do you find a new muse? Well, I'm surrounded by my new muses. I love to read books. I find that reading great stories and reading about great people is just so inspiring, and necessity is the mother of invention. Sometimes if you have a distinct framework to work within, you'll be more creative. So if I have the challenge of creating something beautiful using standard tuning, a 6-string guitar, then I love that challenge. If I start to open the can of worms of like if I was playing in a different tuning and then I have to bring another guitar to all my shows, or I have to torture the audience with me retuning my guitar on stage, and then the setup goes all AWOL, then it just starts to become more about that than my creativity. So, I mean, there's so much you can do with just the 7 notes in a major scale, let alone all the other harmonic options we have. And I certainly feel like I'm enjoying devoting my time and energy to creating songs and arrangements on the 6-string guitar in standard tuning, and I don't feel limited at all, and I feel like the sky's the limit. I feel like I just need more time in every day. Love from Vietnam. Can you share how to make a good sound with fresh fingertips? I think I read that question. It's gone. It's disappeared. Yeah, that's a great question. So the sound and the tone of your guitar really comes from the fingers. So I think that's really about your ear, figuring out how to pull the beautiful sound that you hear in your head out of your guitar. And it's great to record yourself with just a cheap recorder like a phone or whatever, to listen back and listen to your tone, listen to your phrasing, listen to your timing, listen to the musicality of what you're playing, and ask yourself, how can I improve that? Or is that what I hear in my head? Because for most of us, what we hear in our head is different from what we actually sound like. So that would be kind of the start. But I would really focus on the left hand, getting the left hand to be nice and relaxed, because that's where tone really starts. Focus on vibrato. You can do this exercise that I learned from Steve Vai, where you play one note for an hour. And if you just play that D note on the 7th fret of the 3rd string for an hour, just working on the vibrato, you'll really learn how to pull all the beauty out of that note. I apologize if anyone can hear through the microphone. We have a little puppy dog upstairs, and we also have some ducks and chickens and a rabbit up there. We had some contractors working on the house today, and they were like, yeah, I feel like I'm a zoologist right now. There's all these animals around me. It's a bit of a madhouse, so I apologize if you can hear a bit of that. And how to rehab properly my fingers after not playing for a month. I would do my daily exercises and do those every day for 3 days, and you'll be back to your tip-top shape. That would be what I would suggest. That would involve stretching and working on your left hand, working on your right hand, and playing some songs. Simple as that. That's what I do, because there are weeks when I don't play if I'm working on something else. So that's what I do. Top 3 pedals in your pedal board. Well, okay, here are my top 3 pedals. A tuner pedal. I use a Boss tuner pedal. I also really like the Peterson strobe tuners. Another pedal would be a loop pedal. I use the Boss RC1. They cost $99. It's a looper, and it's a great practice tool. I use it as a solo performer. I try not to rely on it too much, but I do like it. And an overdrive of some kind. I use the Nobel's ODR1, which is also a $99 pedal. I want to buy one of the original no bells, which I will at some point when I can justify spending the money on a vintage one, because they sound pretty great. But yeah, I would say an overdrive, a tuner, and a loop pedal, followed by a wah-wah and a reverb of some kind, but most people have reverb in their amps. Anyway, I'm going to have to wrap this up in just a moment, you all, but I hope you enjoyed this informal Q&A about guitar playing and related topics. I do have a virtual tip jar. If you enjoyed this discussion and would like to contribute, then thank you very much in advance. And also check out my coaching community, which is opening on May 9th. It's reopening. The doors have been closed for 5 months now or so, and they're opening again, and I invite you to join. It's an ever-evolving, wonderful community of great players and great people, and people who are at every level of playing, from just starting out through to more experienced players, and everybody's welcome, everybody's encouraging, and I certainly wish you all the best, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks for tuning in. I'm sorry to all those folks in Europe who couldn't be with us on the stream, because I know it's very late over there right now, but I hope you enjoyed it. See you very soon for another stream. I hope you take good care, and thanks very much for watching. See ya.